Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my Series 4 finale of Genealogy Live Interviews YouTube edition, also known as Series 4. So, obviously, this is going to be the last kind of Genealogy Live interview series for probably a while because being a student and all in secondary school, and it's the year before college where everything is just berserk. So it's just going to be a case of you won't hear much from me on this side of things, but all going well. I do have 2 other live event things planned. Planned. It's more in the development stages. Anywho, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to interview someone, and that someone here is the Geneavlogger, also known as probably one of the mostly kind of bigger YouTubers. Well, definitely bigger than me, considering he's got 34,000 at the moment, and I'm on 200. So a bit of a difference, and I'm just glad he says yes to joining in. And without further ado, and embarrassing myself, it is Jarrett.
All right, thanks for having me, Daniel.
Thanks for coming on, and I'll say it again near the end because I'm still amazed that I'm getting this chance. So I'm gonna try and not make a fool of myself. So I would say I would typically get people to introduce yourself, but I mean probably most of the people who come here tonight are actually probably from your side of YouTube. But for anyone that might necessarily know you, introduce yourself.
Yeah, certainly. So, I'm Jarrett Ross. I run the YouTube channel Geneavlogger. I also work as the lead forensic genetic genealogist at DNA Labs International, which you can kind of see that little poster behind me from my company. So I've been doing genealogy seriously, I like to say, since 2009. I've been doing it professionally since 2017. And I'll just keep it simple at that. I love genealogy, and I do a whole lot of stuff throughout the community. So,
and sometimes the shortest introductions are the sweetest ones. Short and sweet. You get the picture. So, what started it all off for you?
There's a couple of things. One of the first things that I think of that I remember is when I was probably 7, 8, maybe. I went to my cousin's bar mitzvah. And for anyone who's not familiar with a bar mitzvah, in the Jewish faith, when you turn 13, you become a man and you have what's known as a bar mitzvah. So I was at my cousin's bar mitzvah, and my uncle had printed out these pages which traced our family line back to the 1600s. And it just kind of really intrigued me because, my mom was born a Nunes Vaz. That's her last name, which is not a common name in the U.S. And especially, white Jews, people wouldn't really expect that with the Ashkenazi. I don't know how to put it exactly. Most people know Ashkenazi Jews, not so much about Sephardi Jews. And so it was kind of this like, well, what is with that? That's kind of cool. And so that was the line that was traced back to the 1600s. And it really got me intrigued. And over the years, I would, play with family tree stuff, and I would look into it and build the tree. But as soon as I would hit all the brick walls, I kind of would give up on it. And, when I was a kid, this was right when the internet was starting. So there was barely anything online. Everything was really, you had to go and do the microfilm, microfiche, index cards, be at the actual places. And as a little kid, I would really, kind of took out all the fun for me. So just going in and out of it. And then finally, when I was in college, in 2009, it was my senior year. And I had started to look into things again, and I'd found all these different websites people had made on different parts of my family. So like I had said, my uncle had the family line traced back, but it was just one line, it was just his father and his father and his father and so on. And so, I was always like, well, what about the wives? What were their families? And then I started finding all these different trees of the wives' families, but then it wouldn't include my side of the family. And then I found Genie.com, which is the home of the world tree. And that's what really got me like hooked, was then I could start taking all these trees I was finding in different parts of the internet, which I will say, you know, I don't suggest just, you know, throwing that stuff together. But, you know, this is what got me started, was kind of taking, you know, okay, well, this person has this part, this person has that part, let's put it together and then work from that. And then it just kind of expanded to where I didn't just have my mom's Nunes Vaz line. Now all of a sudden I also had the Lopez Diaz line and the Robles line and the Enriquez Pimentel and the Senior Cornell and like all these other amazing family names that were like, I had no idea about this. So that's kind of the way, you know, that I got really into it. So, you know, it's just kind of, it was like a buildup over the years until finally it was like, oh, wow, I can actually really build this thing out.
Yeah, and I mean, with my family tree, and I do agree, because obviously, you know, I believe like yourself, Wikitree had obviously asked you, I'm pretty sure, to be a genealogy guest star, as they did with me, and kind of because I was obviously busy, like I've said, with everything else, I had actually fallen behind on the lovely people at Wikitree, and didn't get back to them with so like how what I thought.
Yeah.
And I am planning to do the given time, but it was yeah. Honestly, I need a TARDIS that can just like take me back in time, especially to just when I had lots of time and just, you know, I can do this.
I could use
before
that too.
2017. Preferably before 2017, when I didn't actually get into this. No, I mean, with Wikitree, like, they had found a number of things, and like I do agree with you on, you know, throwing stuff together. But I mean, it does with Wikitree, I know kind of they have obviously their standards, and they're fairly good standards when it comes to, you know, you have to source this. And I like that, you know, that they ask for a source, and because I tried adding a detail and they asked where did you get information from, and I like that they asked that when you're asking, or when you're inputting the information, because it might kind of, you know, pick up a lot of the pieces when it comes to trying to figure out, oh, where did I get this? In theory, it's like your little research along and away. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. So what resources have you found most helpful in your research?
You know, that's an interesting question to ask, because I feel like you can answer that on different levels. I feel like you have your generally, you know, most helpful resources, like your civil records. You know, no matter what type of ancestry you're looking into, there's usually some sort of reference of birth, some sort of reference of death, some sort of reference of marriage. But then when you get in more specific, I feel like that's to specific ancestries, it's a little bit harder. So like one thing I want to answer with that, although I think you have a question further down that might be more along this, but like, you know, as I mentioned, I was doing the Sephardi research, and for me, the most helpful resource was the cemetery where my family was buried. They came from the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam. They were there for a long, long, long time. And the records from the cemetery are kind of like an index of everybody buried there, along with notations of all of their children, all of the details, or not all the details, but a good amount of details on their kids. So not just the names, but the birth dates and different information like that. And then it also has notations of records you could find in the Amsterdam archives. So it was almost like a tell-all in those records itself. So that was just, it was literally the most helpful resource for me when I was starting out to dive into it and feel like I was actually doing research, not just throwing stuff together. But yeah, I mean, Yeah, it's an interesting question to ask, because as you do, especially as you try researching different ancestral backgrounds that aren't quite the same, you run into different issues, you run into different problems, but you also run into different really helpful resources. And generally, as I said, those civil I call them civil, the vital records is really the right way to say it. The vital records are really the most helpful in any sense, but then when you get into the different specific stuff, it can change up about what is the most helpful. Especially if you find places where maybe all of the birth records were destroyed, or you know like I'm sure you deal with this all the time in Ireland, where there's a lot of stuff that's been destroyed and you have very finite resources of what is available, but sometimes those resources might actually have something you can pull something out of.
Yeah, no, and I do agree with you, because for anyone that isn't familiar with Irish research, there we had a nice, well, I say nice, it wasn't exactly that nice, a fire, because during the, I know this, 1921. So yeah, June 1921, the Public Records Office in, I think it was June, it could have been July. It was sometime during the summer months, because I remember tweeting it. But the Public Records Office, where a lot of records were held, including census, was burnt down. So we had an 18, 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, 71, 81, 91, and then obviously 1901 and 11. We only have the full 1901 and 11. We've lost majority, like I think the 1821 to 51 were, I think they were the ones that were actually, a lot of them were actually lost in the fire, annoyingly. If you are lucky enough to have an ancestor in those returns, I'm jealous, I'll just say that outright. Then 1861 and 71. Now this is what trips me, because I forget whether they were pulped or whether they were, because one set of them was pulped and the other was accidentally destroyed after taking them. I don't know why. Well, I probably could if I googled it, but I can't think off the top of my head. This is what's annoying when I'm kind of putting myself on the spot. I can't remember everything.
I know that feeling.
No, I really shouldn't do that. Anywho, so obviously there is one obvious project or venture that you're currently, DNA Labs International up above you, and the Geneavlogger channel.
Yeah.
Channel.
I don't mind how people pronounce it. I know there's the whole thing of, is it genealogy? Is it genealogy? Is it genealogy? Is it, that I have people.
Well, there is only one way to spell it.
Tell me that.
There's only one way to spell it.
Yeah.
But probably multiple ways to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Genealogy. That's how you spell it.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a number of renditions of it, and no, it's not that. Again, I'm going off on a tangent, but are there any other projects or ventures that you're also currently pursuing on top of your busy workload?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many different projects that I'm constantly working on. I think right now the thing outside of work is my YouTuber Family Tree series.
Yes.
I just finished the last episode for Mr. Beat this past week. He did a reaction to the last 4 episodes, and it's a lot of fun because in a lot of ways it's kind of like a test of myself, because when you dive into somebody's family tree, especially with the people I contact, I really don't know their backgrounds. At the best I know, oh well, they're generally American, or well, Mr. Beat, I knew he lived in Kansas, but the people I have lined up right now, I don't really have any idea except for now that I'm diving in. So it can really take you anywhere, and that can really test your skills because, you know, when you have to kind of learn a new location or time period, what records are available, where are they available, and, you know, kind of one of the things I do in the series is I try to seek out people who have expertises already researching that, because collaboration is a huge thing. So that can really like it can turn up a whole lot of stuff. So that's one of the big projects I have going on. I also have a lot of personal projects that have been going on for years. One of them is I've been tracing the families of the Alliance Colony. The Alliance Colony is a Jewish agricultural colony which was founded in southern New Jersey in 1882, and it was the first successful Jewish agricultural colony in the United States. And my family was part of that, and I've been tracing out all of the founding families and a lot of the major families, and there's a big group I have on that. We actually had a reunion just a few years ago for all the descendants, and there were over 600 attendees. So that project's really become like, we have Stockton University in New Jersey is involved. There's some folks that are doing stuff at Rutgers University who are also in touch with us and working with us. And then I'm also working with other descendants of Alliance who are rebooting the area. They're actually buying up the land that was this, you know, where Alliance is, and they're farming it again. They're bringing people to teach them about farming and Jewish life and history. And so it's like this big revival, and I'm kind of like a little part in that big puzzle. And then one other project, which I'll mention, which I'm a very, very small part of, but I feel like it's an extremely important project, is the Jewish genetic census from Avatenu. So there's a group being led mostly by Adam Brown. A really good friend of mine, Michael Waz, is part of this project as well. And anyone who watches my channel may be familiar with him. I've interviewed him once or twice, and he's been involved in a lot of stuff that I'm a part of. But that project is seeking out to really look at the in-depth ancestry of the Jewish people through DNA. And a major part of that project is a Y-DNA study, which has a major focus on Sephardi families. So what I've done a lot of is I trace out a lot of these Sephardic families. And because one of my specialties is finding living people, I'll trace these families down and try to find someone who would be the right person to take a Y-DNA test. And then we can get them to do the Y-DNA. And then because we have their lineage traced far back, we can use the Y-DNA. And we've been able to use that. Study has found a whole lot of amazing stuff just within my own family. As I mentioned, the Nunes-Vaz family. My family came from Amsterdam, but there was a Nunes-Vaz family who was Sephardic Jewish in Jamaica. There were actually two of them in Jamaica. There's another one that was located in Italy in an area, town called Livorno. And there was another one in Suriname. And we've used Y-DNA to prove that the Jamaican branch and my branch are definitely the same families. And our shared ancestor would have lived 17th century or earlier, possibly much earlier than 17th century. But more than likely, I think it's 17th century. But so those
you're
are
the expert.
Yeah,
you're the expert.
Well, it's funny in this regard. While I am an expert in genetic genealogy, what they're doing in their study is not quite my expertise. I understand what they say, but like the deep dives they're doing into it, and especially using the phylogenetic tree and correlating things, it's a really cool project to be a part of, even if I'm just like a little piece, just helping bring in people to be part of it. So, but I've brought in, I want to say maybe a little over a half dozen of different families to be a part of that. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Amy.
And actually, who's watching, I mean, I've seen 4 different people commenting, so I'm assuming they're still sticking with me and I haven't put them to sleep yet. Not you. brilliant. I'm talking about from my perspective. So, oh dear. Okay, so that you now know that you wish you knew when you started out.
Oh gosh, I mean, so many things. I think I already mentioned one of them. Don't just take family trees you find online and throw them together. I mean, that's how I started. And, after a while, then you start to notice, wait, why does this guy have these parents, but this other person has these other parents? And then you start to realize, oh, yeah, not everybody really knows what they're doing, or not everyone will
Yeah.
do it in the same seriousness. So I think that's the number one thing, is that I wish I understood the context of a lot of what I was looking at back then.
Hmm.
Because like I know a lot of people will say you can't use family trees as resources, and in my mind, you can use them as resources. You just have to understand the context that they're built by someone else. There's likely errors, and you just need to go through and verify it. But doesn't mean that that tree might not hold something that you can then verify with documentation that you wouldn't think to look for before because you didn't have that bit in their tree. So I think that would probably be the biggest one. But I think I learned that pretty early on, especially when you're doing it on a place like Genie or Wikitree or Family Search, any of the collaborative trees. You put an error up there, someone notices that error, and then they can fix it. But a lot of times they'll also get in touch with you. And not all genealogists are so nice in how they talk. When I first started out, I actually had I thought that a lot of people in the genealogy community were very abrasive, because a lot of I'd get messages, why are you putting this up on the tree? You're completely wrong. And yeah, sometimes I was wrong, but so, but that would be the biggest thing, I think, just not doing that. But I mean, there's probably a whole laundry list of stuff, um, especially considering back when I like first started. So like when I was just a little kid, because when I first got into it, I had two of my great grandmothers were alive. One of my great grandmothers lived to be 109, another lived to be 100. Um, I never really
Okay.
asked them about anything, but I have a distinct memory of being at my one great grandmother's house, or really it was an apartment, and she was showing me all of these old pictures and telling me about the people. And I remember being surprised about the pictures because, if I remember correctly, and I'm not sure, she had pointed to one picture and said, "This is my brother," or somebody. And I remember I didn't think that they could be related, because in the photo they looked like they had like much darker skin. And as a kid, I didn't really think too much about it. But then when I started getting into genealogy, I was thinking, what was that photo? Who was that? Because I did later find out she had a brother that no one in the family knew about. I asked my mom. I
Okay.
asked my mom's first cousins, who were really close. They grew up living just down the road
Yeah.
from her. My mom did too, but they stayed around that area. And all of them were like, "What are you talking about?" And then I got a message from my one cousin who had spoken to her dad, who was my great grandmother's son in law. And he had been like, "Oh yeah, that's right, she did have a brother." And so, it was like my one great uncle knew about the brother, nobody else did. And so then I think back to
Wow.
those photos, and I like have this basic idea, and like I've talked to my cousins. I've tried to ask them to look in their attic and their basements and see if they have photos, because I know that they inherited a lot of the stuff from my great grandmother. So I'm hoping that they might have it, but they're like, "Oh, we can't find anything." So, I wish back then I knew to, talk to her and ask
Mm.
her and, learn more about it. But, I think that's something that most genealogists feel in general.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight as this is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, now aside, there aren't that many. Because I mean, my last granddad, I think it was my granddad. Well, kind of out of my grandparents' siblings, the last one in 2008. So I think instead of if I was interested in genealogy at the age of 4.5, I mean, all you would have seen is like a little toddler just kind of running around with like a little notepad and pen. I mean, they probably was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's sweet." It wouldn't have really been like, I need this, and this, and no. But I mean, I did get a family tree from her daughter or something that kind of fished it out a little, but obviously trying to confirm that. And one thing I actually wish I actually did at the start was kind of look into Irish genealogy earlier. There's a cousin of mine suggested it, and she goes, "Oh, there's this great website called irishgenealogy.ie." And I thought, okay, I'll look at it. And I think it must have been about 5 months later, and I thought, you know what, I'll have a look. And I was actually kicking myself afterwards because I thought, why didn't I look at this earlier? But yeah, live and learn. So what aspect of genealogy do you love the most? Like looking at records, seeing photos, hearing stories, or in your case, DNA?
Yeah. I think it's the connections for me. That's what really cemented the most of it. I guess in a way, it's kind of sharing the family information with the relatives. But when I first started and I was throwing those trees together, there were some, there was information that on family members that would presumably be alive that would be like third or fourth cousins, and they would be living in other countries. So I tried looking for them and I found them on Facebook, and I connected and I started this family group that's now hundreds upon hundreds of cousins just from like one family. I think I have 5 or 6 different family projects on Facebook.
Wow.
A couple of them are small, but like 2 or 3 of them are pretty big. And it's just really fun to be able to kind of connect, and you meet all these different people all over the world where, you do have this connection to them, even sometimes, even if it's a little distant. But being able to, have those interactions, and then also having other cousins interacting. So from that group that I mentioned, within the first 2 years, there was a 4th cousin of mine who lived in New Zealand, and he connected with cousins who were 5th cousins of both his and ours. So he and I shared 3rd great grandparents, and then we all shared 4th great grandparents with the cousins in England. He connected with the cousins in England and then went to England and stayed with the cousins there.
Right.
So, it's like he would have never even met them had it not been for me doing that. And then not only did he meet them, but then they're like really close. They stay in touch. A lot of the different cousins do. So, and then with my genetic genealogy, I focused a lot on my own family and really reconnecting a lot of branches, because coming from a Jewish family, we have a lot of brick walls that are not easy to overcome with just documentation, and genetic genealogy is taking that a step further. And because I was able to develop skills using that, I started to do it with adoptees as a search angel. And those connections were seriously like some of the most amazing ones. Especially, I got a few letters from some of the people that I helped where they were like, "You've literally changed my life." There was my life before you, and then there was my life after you got involved. And it's a really weird feeling to know that you just by doing this thing that you're interested in, kind of being a snoop in a way. Like I get comments all the time on Facebook that it's people are like, he's like a digital stalker. He likes to stalk the dead, or stuff like that. But in a sense, that's just what genealogy is.
I was just about to say that.
So, a lot of people say that, especially to my my finding or identifying people in old film. People will say, would anyone in 1911 imagine that 100 years later, some guy would be stalking them online?
And they probably thought, no, obviously technology has definitely evolved. And yes, in a way, that is what genealogy is. As you see the memes that go around that kind of say, "I stalk dead people," or something, and it's just like, it is kind of what it is. But it's entertaining. It like genealogy is fun, whatever way you look at it.
Yeah.
And obviously, for some it mightn't be, and obviously, for some it might kind of open up an unwanted. How am I trying to say this? Unwanted memory, even if I could talk. But yeah, that's just the way it goes. So, I had one day, which if anyone followed me on any of my social media, and obviously followed Jarrett, I put him first so that you can just go to him, and then if you're bothered, you can find me under his links. But obviously, I will. If you follow me, you would have seen this, but I will mention it again briefly because I will just take over the whole thing if I do. Anyway, so what's an interesting story or event that you've discovered in your family history?
This one was one that was tough to kind of choose just one story. I think one of the ones that I really find just kind of funny is it's kind of interesting but kind of not. It's a story that I learned because um, my one of my grandfather's first cousins had the wherewithal back in the 80s or 90s to do a video interview with that great grandmother of mine that I wish I had talked to,
Yeah,
along with some of the other family members. And she tells this story about, um, gosh, I guess it would have been in the 1920s, maybe. It has to do with Charles Lindbergh. So, whatever the dating of that is, I can't think of it exactly off the top of my head. But basically, they lived up in Massachusetts and they would go and take trips down to Florida. And so there was some trip where basically they had gone down, and then there was this big event going on or whatever, where Charles Lindbergh was going to come and talk and, do the whole thing. And so they were walking around, and my great grandmother apparently went, she was really tired. And so she sat down on just some bench and just was like, oh, whatever, I'll take a little nap. So she took a nap. And then when she woke up, she was where like everything was all set up, and literally right in front of her was Charles Lindbergh and I guess some other guys just like having this conversation or whatever. And so she freaked out and she jumped up and ran away. Ran away. So I just really simple story, but it's just kind of so funny because it's like this weird historical connections. That's it. That was a small one I wanted to mention, but I think the thing that I've enjoyed the most finding out about my ancestors has been my great grandfather Jack. He worked with his cousins who ran what was known as Mills Music Publishing. I think it was Mills Music Incorporated, but they were on Tin Pan Alley, and they were a major force in shaping American music. They founded Dizzy Gillespie, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington was a major part of their organization. If it wasn't for the Mills Music Incorporated, we may not have Duke Ellington. He may not have become anything. And my great grandfather was the general sales manager. And when I started to do the research and I contacted cousins of mine on this Mills side, one of my cousins, who's a really interesting person himself, his name's Stanley Mills, and he actually owns the publishing rights and is the reason why the Chicken Dance is famous in the U.S. For anyone not familiar with the Chicken Dance, it's da 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 da, that thing. So my cousin Stanley brought that to the U.S., and so I got in touch with him when I was doing this research. And he had actually, when he was young, he had gone on trips with my great grandfather to do music sales, because that's what he would travel around the country and go to music conventions, and he was their salesman. And so when I talked to my cousin Stanley, he told me, about my great grandfather and like, how they were traveling. And, my great grandfather was like this really jovial guy. He told me this one story about they were at some hotel and there were some nuns walking by, and my great grandfather yelled at him, "Hey, sister!" So, just like, just a fun sort of guy, but like, actually finding out kind of what he did with them, and that, he really, he was the guy to bring the music all throughout the country and tell, go to the music conventions and tell them why you got to get catalogs from Mills Music. So that, I think that was one of the things I really loved learning.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think mine would match that somehow. It's essentially, in short, my grandmother, she had, I took out a subscription for the Irish Newspaper Archives today, and my mum and myself were just sitting here, and we were just punching into the search bar, just trying to find bits on family members, and I was off looking at one, and she was off looking at another, and she punched in looking at her mum, so she just wanted to see what she could find, and she found there's this article from 1986. Now her name is Kate, and the headline, and I kid you not, it was the headline. It was called "Shut the Gate." No, final warning: shut the gate, Kate, because I'm not kidding.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So the story is the most, and I'm going to say it outright, lousy thing, because it was, so the friend of my nan that she'd been living with had moved in way before this. I'm just going to call him John because I can't remember his name. This John fella, and he put in a gate for something to like keep cattle in a field or something, even though he didn't even have any cattle. He just put a gate somewhere and just made it the neighbor's responsibility. I think there was like 2 neighbors near him that shared the same out, the kind of exit, and it was just, you had to shut the gate, and my gran didn't. Like, and the newspaper was like, it's so bizarre. It's like, it says, and Mr. John, I'm just going to call him Smith because again I can't think of his name. Mr. John Smith observed, Kate O'Cleary just observed her not closing the gate or something, and the judge, because she was brought to the circuit court in Killarney or Tralee or one of them, I've forgotten which one. Great memory, I know. And it was kind of saying, and I kid you not, if you do not close the gate, I will put you in prison for 3 months.
Oh wow!
And it was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, the most petty thing that you could possibly, bring someone to court over. Like, oh, you didn't shut a gate, and I'm thinking you could have gotten out and shut it yourself. And like, in the paper, it kind of said, oh well, Mr. John Smith had cattle that he needed to, keep in the field, and my mum remembers this fella, and he didn't. He wasn't a farmer. He didn't have cattle. So I don't know where that cattle defense was coming from, but sure, that's done and done. But it was just, and I just love the way that she reacted. Like, kind of reading how my grandmother, kind of like, Mrs. O'Cleary accepted the her error on her part, and I'm thinking, well, do you really have to? I mean, it's a silly thing to be brought to court over, but sure, that was 1986. What do I know? I was born many years later. So, what type of record do you like most?
I'm really sorry. Give me 1 second. It looks like I need to do something real quick. I'll be right back.
No worries. Okay, so in the meantime, this will be a good time to note a few things. Firstly, to anyone watching, if you have any questions for Jarrett when he comes back, or for later on, please do get them in now. I've been seeing them popping up, and I'm saving them to the end, so please stay tuned. And funny enough, I know I said at the start I don't have any other ideas for things, and I literally have a brainwave for a new series, which I say it's a new series. I still have to figure out if it would work. But stay tuned for that. It may go ahead, it may not. It may just be, a thing that just like a little spark, but never does anything. Anywho, welcome back, Jarrett.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're fine.
I had forgotten to plug my computer in, and I noticed I was like 10 minutes away from it shutting off. So I needed to plug it in.
I don't think we get the rest of it done in 10 minutes somehow, so good call.
No.
So, what? Oh, no, I asked that one. Excuse me. What type of record do you most and why?
So this one is going to be part of my Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam resources, and that would be the marriage bonds, or what's more known as the Undertrouw, or the whole resource is called the Undertrouw Registers, and it's just it's these records that date back to the 1500s. I can't remember how far back, but they go from the 1500s all the way up to 1811, which was the changeover to the civil registers, thanks to Napoleon. And but the marriage bonds were basically just these things that they would put out that were like publicly saying these two people are going to get married. They had to be set. I think they have to be out for at least a week, but could be out for up to a year, and like there's a whole lot to it. But what they do is they're just kind of like a quick marriage info. So it'll say the groom, it'll give where he's from, it'll give a witness, it'll give the bride where she's from, her witness, and then signatures or marks of the bride and groom.
Right.
And it's just a really, really, really cool record set to go through. It was one of the ones that when I was working on all these families in Amsterdam, along with the Beth Chaim cemetery records I mentioned earlier, these were really like the two vital ones to really build everything out. And it was really cool to see it too, because these are Sephardic Jews going to a Dutch, I want to say it's a civil thing, but it basically they would go to a Dutch clerk who would write it out. So there are all these Portuguese sounding names written by the Dutch. So the names are all over the place. It's kind of funny, some of them. But like, the Dutch like to throw a lot of J's in there. So there was a lot of families where all of a sudden they had J's in their name that, wouldn't. So like the Barzilai family is one of the families, and the way that the Dutch spell it, they end at AIJ. So just it's kind of a fun thing, but it's a really great resource. And anyone researching anything in Amsterdam, especially if there's a marriage in Amsterdam before 1811, those are the way to go. As an example, in the series I just did for Mr. Beat on my channel, the last episode was about Volga Germans. But one of the German families that Mr. Beat descends from wasn't actually German. They were Dutch. And when I got that information, I didn't include it in the video. But one of my audience, one of the people that watches my videos, he'd commented, which the comment's gone now for some reason, but he'd commented that he thought he'd found the record, and he did. It was the right record. I looked at it, and it was Mr. Beat's ancestor. But that ancestor had gone from the Netherlands to Germany to Russia to Kansas, and who would have thought? Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a couple of generations from the Netherlands. I think the person who actually immigrated from the Netherlands went Netherlands, Germany, Russia, and then one of his descendants went Russia to Kansas. But 2-3 generations going from the Netherlands, heading way out east to then head way out west.
Well, I mean, you probably have to do what you have to do to get where you're going. Oh my God, that's a trick. So
yeah, Rob HE just commented, yes, that was your comment. Yeah, it disappeared. I don't know why it did.
Okay, so what does genealogy mean to you?
This um what do I mean, really it's you know, it's I don't know. It's hard to say. I like to I like to think of it kind of as like there's two there you have genealogy and then you have family history. Technically they're both the same thing. In a sense, genealogy is like the dry facts. Genealogy is this person was born this day in this area to these parents, and they did, they married this person, and it's kind of like the dry facts of the ancestry, whereas the actual family history, that's the story, that's the actual history. But I guess that's just that's just being a little nitpicky about the terms in a sense. But I mean, if in a full philosophical sense of genealogy, I think it's a way of finding how we're all connected, because we really are all connected, even if it isn't necessarily a close blood connection. Which is one of the reasons why I love these collaborative trees, especially Genie, with their relationship finder tool, where once you're connected into the world tree, then you can see how you're connected to anybody else in the world tree, even if it's like your fourth cousin's wife's great uncle's third cousin once removed's nephew or something, like what's what's known as a Spaceballs relation. So if anyone's seen the movie Spaceballs, there's the one part where he says something like, I was your father's brother's second cousin's roommate. It's just like, it's like the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So I in a philosophical sense, I think that's what it really is. It's finding how we are all connected.
Yeah. And going back to actually, the relationship finder, I think I'd seen on Twitter that you are like 13th or 14th cousins with Mr. Beat. Or something.
So it was more distant than that. Matt Baker from Useful Charts was 14th, or he's a little bit closer of a relation to Mr. Beat.
It might have been
but
him.
I am 19th cousins once removed. But that connection is not necessarily proven. The connection I have to that family, which, what was our most recent ancestor, assuming that lineage is correct, is John of Gaunt. So my connection to that is through a family called the Belmonte family, and the line that connects me is hypothesized in a book by a guy named, I think it's Robert Gathiel, but he writes a book called The Belmonte Families, and it talks about different families with the name, and he makes a few hypotheses in the book, but they aren't quite proven. I mean, it's the kind of hypotheses where you're missing sometimes a generation or two, or, well, this name sounds similar to this name, and there is this kind of correlating thing. So it's technically not proven, but based on hypothesized genealogy, there is a connection to Mr. Beat. So
right. Imagine rocking up to a family history, so like a family reunion. Oh, how are you related? Well, I'm his 19th cousin.
Yeah.
And then the other person just says, I'm just his second. And it's just, you're just kind of thinking, yeah, I'm still cousins with him though. No. And regarding your reference, Auntie Jen's family trees, who, it's funny because a lot of the people who I've interviewed are actually, because they have Jen. I've seen, obviously, Amy was earlier, and Genealogy, which is it was episode 5, the one before Jarrett. So it's nice to see a number of people in. So, so I'm getting to the end of my questions. So this is the last call. I said if you're on a ferry, last call for questions. Get them in. Now, before I want to break up the monotonous of me asking questions with some audience questions. So, first of all, from David Mendoza.
Yeah.
From the name, what resources does Jarrett recommend for genetic genealogy?
All right. Thank you for asking, David. David Mendoza runs Sephardic Genealogy on YouTube, and he's also he's one of the administrators along with myself, Michael Waz, who I mentioned earlier, and another amazing researcher, Tone Thielen. We all run the Sephardic Diaspora group on Facebook. So just a little shout out to David. Great resources. I guess it depends necessarily what you mean by resources. If it's resources to learn further about genetic genealogy, I would say Roberta Estes has an amazing blog, DNA Explained, which I think goes into a lot of stuff really well and in depth. So for reading, I think that'd be a great way. If you prefer videos, I really like videos. Family History Fanatics, I think, does some of the best genetic genealogy videos out there. Genealogy TV does some really good stuff too. Although Connie's stuff I feel like she focuses more on resources, but she does touch on a lot of genetic genealogy. In terms of references, if you're looking for, or not references, but resources like actual things to use, DNA Painter, I love DNA Painter, being that I know David comes from a Jewish background. It might not, DNA Painter might be a little bit more difficult just because there is a bit of endogamy to deal with. But along the same lines with DNA Painter, there's also Genetic Affairs, which does auto clustering. And Genetic Affairs, they've rolled out a few different features in the past couple of years, I want to say, where it will not just build the auto cluster, but then it will also identify any possible shared locations, possible shared ancestors. In a sense, it kind of does like a relationship finder, like what Genie does, but gives it to you in more of like a report form. You have to have your tree connected though in Family Tree to be able to do that. And then I think he also has it in GEDmatch, but I don't know if the Family Tree thing works in GEDmatch. So those are two really great resources if you're looking for things to actually dive into the DNA. And then for one last one I will mention is for anyone who's done any of who's done any serious Y chromosome testing. So not just taking 23andMe and getting your haplogroup. I'm talking about going to Family Tree DNA and getting an actual Y chromosome test, or doing a whole genome test, whether it's Nebula or there's a few others out there. I like Nebula. That's who I've done it through, and I have a video about that. But then you can put your information into YFull and then join their phylogenetic tree, and that's a much deeper dive into the serious stuff with genetic genealogy. Yeah. But I think those are three resources that are really, really good for actual genetic genealogy work.
Right. And for anyone that kind of think, oh, he was kind of understanding that, no. I've not dabbled or delved into DNA, so I'm just nodding and just taking it all in. Okay. So I just had to remember it all. Okay, next one from Lachlan Emerson. Okay, so he says, this is actually load in. That'd be nice. Do you guys know how much about Jewish people in England converting to Christianity, such as King Edward I?
I would not. That would be not my specialty. I do deal with Jewish genealogy topics, but there are a lot of Jewish genealogy topics. Which actually, I guess this is a really good spot to kind of say this. I feel like this is common for a lot of different types of genealogy groups. Is you get like Jewish genealogy, but then when you dive into it, it's much more than just Jewish genealogy. There's Jews living in all these different areas, and the genealogy of where they live will vary. Then on top of that, you also have, there's Sephardi communities, there's Ashkenazi communities, there's Mizrahi communities, there are completely other communities, Romaniot and Italkim, and there's all these different things. And then even when you break that down, like if you look at Sephardi Jews, well, then you have your Western Sephardi Jews, you have your Eastern Sephardi Jews, you have your there's the North African Sephardi Jews, and then you have there's different kind of breakdowns of that, even because within the Western world you have, or in the Western Sephardic diaspora, that is, you have your European communities, but then you also have your communities in the Caribbean and the Americas, and they're all kind of the same but kind of different, so it's like all the genealogies where it's like there's all these different little topics, and then you have these things like Jews in England converting to Christianity, such as King Edward. I don't know if that's true or not, but that, that sounds like something that, I don't know. I'm not sure who I'd even recommend for that.
I've no clue, so I can't help any further. Okay, next one in from Tricia Casey. Is there I can access from the US to research ancestors from around Belfast?
I think this is a question more for you.
Yeah, I thought it was, but I just thought, I'll just put it to him anyway. Well, for this, obviously, this the Irish census. So Belfast is in County Antrim, which does have the Irish Census Force in 1901 and 1911. As far as I know, it does not cover any of the 1821, 31, 41, 51. I think that's more southern counties like Cork. Cork's definitely one of them. And I think Kerry and a handful of others, but not many. As another thing is Irish genealogy that goes from 1864 up to as information. Oh, don't tell me my internet's going. Okay, I'm back again. Sorry,
Hey,
marriage is up. Marriage is up to 1945, and from 1864 up to 1945, and deaths from up to same, but only images are available from 1871 or 2 onwards. They're working to get the images for the ones from 1864 to 71 online, and I can't remember if I said it because I've forgotten what I said now. Deaths go up to 1970, so that's how that goes. But Irish genealogy would be your main bet, either that or Find My Past is another one. I just have to note these down because I'm tagging people who I've mentioned, because obviously honorable mentions, I'll try and do them now. Anyway, so Find My Past has Irish records. I'm getting mental block now. So those are the things I can come up with. You're more than welcome to email me or message me if you want any more guidance. I can try and help. Okay, next one. And welcome, Tricia, and you're welcome, David. So as far as that goes, I think that's all the questions for now. And again, keep getting in if you want to. We're probably going to be a little longer. I won't give you too long, obviously. But anyway, so what advice would you give to a young person starting out genealogy?
I feel like I've answered a lot of these questions with "it depends." I think it depends on what they want to do. For anyone who, I feel like this question is geared towards someone who wants to kind of get serious in the genealogy community. Someone such as yourself. I feel
I'm still
like
working out a career. I don't even know if it's genealogy yet. That's actually why I asked that question on Twitter. Did you know what you wanted to when you left school, and if you or if you did you do it? That's why I ask, because I'm at the point in my life where I'm being told, right, you need to start thinking about college. If you are going to do it or not, pick what course, do it now. Well, not now. I have until February, but I digress. But kind of, I'm at that point. That's why I asked. Anyway, continue.
Right. I mean, I think the number one thing that I would really say is just kind of be persistent in your work. You know, just keep going with it. A lot of genealogy, I feel it's kind of like a snowball going down a hill. When you start out, it's really small, and as you go along, it builds and builds and builds and builds until it's like massive. And I feel like with genealogy, if you're really serious about it, you know, just like with anything, you're gonna run into some people that may make you feel like you're not really there. Or I know a lot of people will get kind of like that imposter syndrome sort of thing. You know, I think it's really just a matter of really just, you know, kind of being persistent and you know, continuing on. I feel like this would be a good place to kind of tell my story of getting into being a professional genealogist, because I never actually had that inkling in my mind. When I actually, the first time that anyone ever suggested it to me was probably either one of my parents or one of my cousins who said, "Have you ever thought about doing this as a job?" And my thought was always, well, I don't like school. I probably would have to go back to school to get a certificate of some sort. And, you know, I don't want to have to deal with that. And then, you know, who knows if I'll even be successful. And, you know, this was, you know, right before the big boom of genealogy, I like to think. You know, it was right when I got into it, Finding Your Roots hadn't started. I think it was during the Faces of America series, which is, so for anyone who's not familiar, Henry Louis Gates Jr. is a historian and genealogist in the United States, and he has a program on the public TV in the US, PBS, which goes into the ancestry of celebrities. And the first ones he did were African American Lives. Then he did Faces of America, and then he did Finding Your Roots, which is like the big thing now. Everyone knows about Finding Your Roots.
No, I know Finding Your Roots. I didn't know the other ones.
Yeah, but before that, it was like he was kind of getting a following, and you know, I mean, the show was great. It was kind of like what it is now, just set up a bit differently. And so I just, you know, I didn't feel like I could really make a living at it, and so for years I really didn't care. And plus, my main passion was music. I worked as a booking agent. I owned my own booking agency. I worked as a tour manager. I worked as a band manager. I was in bands. And it wasn't until about 2017, I was actually playing on a tour with one of my bands. We were trying to be really serious about stuff. And our last show in our hometown for this tour, our drummer and our guitarist got into a fight on stage. And the band broke up that night. And we had a tour lined up and we had to cancel it. And, you know, I was just kind of like stuck home, like, you know, weeks off work, because, you know, working in music, you have to have a job on the side. So I was working as a chef and I was working as an optician. And I just decided, you know, I'll look and see what's going on in town. And it just so happened that NGS was having a conference in Raleigh. NGS is the National Genealogical Society. Is that right? Yeah, because FGS is the Federation of Genealogical Societies. Now they're basically the same thing. And so that was the first conference I'd ever really knew. Well, I knew there were other conferences, but it's the first one where I was like, oh, it's in Raleigh. It's where I live. I could just go and do it. I went there. I was talking to people. I'd never had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, all these people love genealogy like me. And then when I was over at the Ancestry booth, I started talking to this one guy because I was looking at, they had pro genealogists. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if I could work as like a contract genealogist or something. And I ended up talking to him for 30 minutes. And he was like, oh, you're exactly what we want. And, you know, this is really what we we want people who are passionate, and we'd love to have people who really want to do this kind of stuff, and have these different specialties. And so talk to us. I didn't end up getting a job with Ancestry. Things just didn't quite work out, but it gave me enough gusto to be like, I'm gonna do this on my own. And then right at that same time, there was one day I was just driving along, and all of a sudden it popped in my head, Genealogy YouTube channel. And I never thought of it before. Just popped into my head. I remember exactly where I was driving. I drive that spot all the time. And almost every time I drive through that spot, I'm like, this is where I thought of the channel. And so I went home and I looked it up to see, what was on there. I found Family History Fanatics. I found a couple of other channels that were really, really small. Personally, from my standpoint, I felt like throughout the years, I never connected to the genealogy community because the way things were done were in this, I guess you could say, a style that was more towards the older generations. And so when I started, and I had that idea of YouTube, a major part of that was, I think if I do YouTube, I could actually connect with an audience more of my age and younger than the typical genealogy stuff. Because after I went to NGS, then I started to really dive into it. And and you notice really quickly that when you go to a lot of live events, and most of the audience is, I want to say, 50 or older. A large percentage, I want to say, is women. Not and so it's like there's this certain demographic that you kind of associate with genealogy. And my plan was, can I hit that non-typical genealogy demographic with a YouTube? And not just that, but then if I want to start my own business being a genealogist on my own, YouTube is a great way to say, here's my work, here's what I can do, and here's something to inspire you to say, yeah, this is the guy I want to hire. And so starting out, I never even had that inkling in my mind of, I want to be a genealogist. And it's just kind of like I stumbled into it. But a major part of it was that for years and years and years, I really was persistent about working on it. I that's why I always like to say 2009 is when I got serious with it, because that was when it basically almost became like, a long day, let me sit down and relax with some genealogy. And a lot of times too, like when I'm hanging out with my friends, and remember that I started when I was college age, so I'm hanging out, all my buddies, we're drinking, watching movies and stuff. And then I'm like, hey, so what's up with your great grandparents? And next thing you know, I'm at the computer, all my friends huddled around, and I'm bringing up documents, and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you find that? So it was like this, it was just this constant, whenever I could have fun with it and stuff, I would. And just I would just continue with it. And even with my friends, I would be kind of persistent with them. I'd start their trees, and then next time I hung out with them, they'd be like, yeah, I talked to my mom and I told her about what you found and this and that, and then she told me this. And then we look up off of what she told, and then all of a sudden we have even more stuff. And so I started getting really friendly with some of my friends' parents, because they would just be like, can we get his number? Can we just talk to him? And I mean, I built all these family trees for all these friends of mine online, and it was it was always that fun sort of thing. So I think, yeah, for anybody young, if you really want to make a career out of it, obviously persistence is going to be a major part of it, because I mean, this is a field at this point where there's not so many gatekeepers. You don't have to be certified to really be a professional genealogist. You don't have to have any sort of degree. I mean, you can, and that's great. And then you can use that to show that you do know what you're doing, but you don't actually need that. Anybody can start saying, you know what, I want to be a genealogist. And there was, I'm not going to remember his name. I don't even know if he'd be watching. He might. I want to say it's Eric Gress. Am I saying that right? If anyone knows who I'm talking about, he's a really young genealogist in the U.S. he's got to be only like 18 or 19 at this point, but there was a whole news story about him when he was 16
Oh,
because he was doing the
Eric
same stuff.
Schubert.
Schubert. I knew his first name was Eric. I don't know why I thought the last name was. Yeah. So, I think that kind of just goes to show that, if there is persistence, it doesn't matter how young you are. You can make an impact. And I think he works professionally. I think he even does
Yeah,
some of the forensic genetic genealogy or
I think he
investigative
did.
genetic genealogy.
No, I mean, and yeah, and like dreams can come true. And I mean, for me, I don't. Point. Right, we are live, but I have no idea if anyone is actually going to see this. But welcome to part 2, the parts that I did not plan on creating. This is not fun trying to stitch this all together. I hope there is a way that there is. It's not going to be great. But anyway, so continuing on from where I left off, if I can even remember, I think I was talking about, making a career out of genealogy, not being able to, like, I don't personally think I'd be able to do it. But I don't know, maybe at some point I might have some hope of doing it. But because I am just sick of silly live streams for tonight, I'm just going to try and motor on and just move on.
Okay.
Life goes on. So, with more and more young people getting into genealogy, do you think, in your own opinion, there is a sufficient outlet for young genealogists to like connect, collaborate, and just work together on things?
I think there is. I think that there are a lot of platforms to do that through. I think the hard part really is kind of overcoming, in a sense, a lot of what's already there in genealogy. Basically, there's this whole setup already, and while there aren't that many gatekeepers in genealogy, there still can be gatekeepers. And so you may have some things where, if you're a young genealogist and you want to kind of be a part of something, it may feel a little bit harder. I think ageism is something that's discussed a lot lately in genealogy. But I think the biggest thing really is just that the standard stuff that interests the typical genealogy crowd doesn't quite interest the younger genealogy crowd in the same way. I think is one of the reasons why the conference style webinars that are, an hour long really don't grab the attention of, I want to say light hobbyist genealogists. So basically, people who would be into genealogy and they do it every once in a while, but not quite as dedicated as yourself, Daniel, where it's like, it's kind of like an everyday thing where you're really diving into the community. Because I think that's one of the things with genealogy is that there's all these different levels of interest. And for the younger folks, the level may not be there quite as much. And then when you don't have the content that goes along to really inspire you, then I think that you can get lost. So kind of jumping back to what I had said before about finding your roots and Henry Louis Gates Jr. and all that, I think that was actually a major inspiration for me because that was actually something that put genealogy in a light that wasn't that hour-long boring webinar. Not all webinars are boring, but I think even most of us who enjoy the webinar we're getting have had that thing where we're kind of sitting there like nodding off sleeping just because it can be boring. it can really do that. And so I think the real hurdle isn't quite as much, are there platforms for young genealogists? I think there are a lot. I think it's more of young genealogists being able to be heard through those platforms, or having the proper content to interest younger audience. So I mean, that's why I'm so much about YouTube, is because I think that that's what it does. I mean, I know for me, I got into a lot of history stuff through YouTube that in school I remember hating learning about it. And then, you go on YouTube and it's done in this way that's trying to intrigue, and it's not, you know, so I mean, that's one of the things I've been trying to do with my new YouTuber series. And that's part of the idea, is that, a lot of YouTubers have a really, really young audience, and they're kind of, they're into the YouTubers. It's just like people who are into celebrities and then they watch Finding Your Roots to find out, oh, well, where did Questlove's family come from? Where did Andy Samberg's family come from? Well, it's the same thing with YouTube. Like I would love to do Mr. Beat's family tree. I would love to do Mark Rober's family tree. I'd love to do PewDiePie's family tree, even though I, am terrible with the, where is he, in Sweden? I think it is. I can't remember, but it's like all these YouTubers where they have massive followings, and, most of their audience is young. And so, my idea was, well, I can do kind of like a Find Your Roots thing and make it interesting, and have that pacing where it's going to be interesting content to people of all ages, and especially people who are younger, but also have enough of that genealogy tutorial likeness, so that, if somebody is watching who, maybe some 16-year-old ends up finding one of my videos because they like Mr. Beat, and then they watch one of the videos and they go, wait a second, I could do that. He's showing how to do it. And I know it's just a search tool. It's just like Google. Half of what I do is Google sometimes. And so that, the content that actually goes towards the audience that really enjoys it. So platforms, yes. Content, I think that's where it really, really needs to be improved to draw the younger audience in. And I mean, I think, with Twitter and TikTok and stuff like that, those are, those platforms have much younger audiences already in the genealogy spaces than when I first started out back in 2009. I mean, I remember when I would go on, the different Facebook groups and so, and I mean, you found almost nobody under 40, and now you go in these groups and there's a lot of people who are, and then you go on Twitch and you go on TikTok and even, YouTube, and I mean, there are a lot of YouTubers who are doing genealogy that are younger. So it's just, I think over time it's going to happen. But the other thing too is it takes a while to build up that content. So they start out young, but then maybe by the time they actually reach it, they're not still that in that young age. I mean, I remember when it was like, how do we get these millennials into genealogy? And now, a lot of millennials are into genealogy, and that still is part of the question. But I feel like a lot of the focus now for the younger audience is shifted to, your generation. So, not that that's a bad thing or anything. We just all we grow older, as we all know very well in genealogy. And as that happens, I think the content will slowly change, and that will bring in more. I hope that makes I hope that all made sense. It was a little rambly.
No, no. I mean, I ramble. So, I mean, if I can just about make sense, I'm sure you made perfect sense, Jarrett. And with that, because I am going to have to try and edit all of this together, I'm going to have to stitch it. So, for anyone watching, I will obviously edit. Well, first of all, thank you, Jarrett, for coming along and putting up with me.
My pleasure. Thank you for
the atrocious, annoying conditions that this is done.
Yeah, having been a musician and played shows and all that for years and years, one of the things musicians always say to each other is, you haven't truly done, any sort of show unless you've had one go wrong in some sort of way. So just think of this as notching your belt of, of going along. I think even with the little stumble there due to internet issues, this has been a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed it.
Good. well, at least you've been somewhat entertained. But I'll say this now, and obviously this won't make it into the final cut. But for anyone watching now, I think there's 2 people. First of all, thank you for coming back to look and sticking with it. And also, Jarrett's interview will be pulled after this. It'll just temporarily be down. I'm just going to temporarily take it down. I'm going to edit it all together, stitch it so that it actually looks somewhat like it was done in one take. But obviously you can see on the top right corner there's StreamYard, and the other one that was Restream, and obviously different display names and all that. But who looks at that closely? Jarrett's interview will temporarily be unavailable until I can edit this and stick it up. So until then, just stay tuned, because like I said, I still have another series which I might potentially do depending on how I feel with my internet router after this. So until then, just keep up to date with Jarrett and all of his work, and if you want to see my ramblings, follow me on Twitter, because that's where I hang out the most, but I am on Instagram and Facebook too. So without further ado, I'm going to end. So see you next time, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.